So let's talk about Shell. Shell the Infamous, Shell the Wicked. This is one of my deepest characters I have in my roster. She is probably one of my top favorites as well, just because of how her character is. She's very, I don't know what the proper word is, versatile, but she can just do just about anything. She is the perfect rogue character that is used to making difficult decisions. She is very accustomed to making the hard, difficult decisions that would result in life or death. When Shell's character was first made and created, she was actually completely different than what she appears later on. She was actually initially the bad guy. I wanted to focus entirely on the bad guy. She was not a good person in her original concept, but I took that first concept of what she was before, which was basically she was supposed to be this really elusive serial killer, and that's quickly evolved over the years to becoming what she is now. She made her very first appearance in the very first long series that I had mentioned previously called Vigilance. She was actually the antagonist, and without even trying, once the spotlight shifted to her in the story, she really shined bright. Her character as a whole really came through as this renegade, rogue-like character that turns against her own boss and goes to, take him out for what he did. She actually has her own book where it really thoroughly goes into, who she is, and, it's another version of Abigail's life, another era. It's canon, but it's also something that the book itself explains a whole lot of characters in there that you will actually frequently see in upcoming animations. Not all of them are explained completely, but Abigail is really touched on in a very big way. Now, Shell, who is also known as Abigail in The Simpsons, she is known as currently, the character that she has evolved to become, she is known as one of the world's greatest assassins. Strictly in the underground, where she is mostly hired from back in the day. I say back in the day because her character has evolved to these ways to where it has branched off in many different directions. For instance, in the short animation Rogue, she is actually sitting there helping Onyx Stone, who has been forced to do a lot of her boss's bidding, her boss being Daraku, and he is forced to do whatever he wants because he is holding Onyx's conscience hostage, basically, over what his actions do will represent the future of what, the result of what happens to Abigail's family. Abigail was trained by Daraku himself. Those are the two scariest individuals on their planet, which is called Siren. Siren is just pictured essentially as a 10 times bigger version of Earth. It has its own lore, it has its own background that we'll get into another time later. So, Abigail, who is also known as Shell, as an alias, which the name Shell has a reputation of its own, and it is very well feared across the world because of what she has done and how good she is at her job. She was trained by the very best, which was, obviously, Daraku, who is practically, in the time that we see him in the short Rogue, Daraku in his current state is actually, he's very dangerous in Rogue. Now, Daraku alone is a completely different character that we will touch on again in another episode of this, possibly, because his character has a whole lot of lore to him as well. But let's stick to Shell for right now. Shell is, whenever you see her in the book, for example, she clearly shows her skill, and in a way to where she puts it on display as you can't touch her unless she is toying with you, and even then, you're not going to be able to beat her. She has been trained in ways that no human being could survive, but that is because of her past and who she is and who she's, where she comes from. Her bloodline essentially keeps her alive. Or basically. I use essentially way too much. Anyways, so her bloodline comes from her mother, who is known as a legend, a myth, someone who is practically a ghost on Siren. At one point in time, people heard of her and actually worked with her because she was involved in commanding a small squad in an army that was involved in a major world war on planet Siren. Her mother being Catherine Linston. Catherine Linston being a major legend on Siren, mostly because she is a very seasoned veteran, and she's another character that we'll have to go into another time because she herself has been alive for thousands of years. She's not a vampire, she's not some weird immortal. I'll explain that another time. Chell has what is known as the immortal gene, right? Now, you might be thinking, well, you just said her mother isn't immortal. Well, that's because she's not. The immortal gene, basically, to break it down to a simplified, summarized version, the immortal gene is this thing that slows your aging down severely, like a whole lot, basically. And it makes your healing maxed out. You heal faster than Wolverine in some cases. Depending on what version you're looking at, because in order to make a scene really good, I had to kind of nerf the idea of the immortal gene to an extent with its healing capabilities. But let's get back to the main point here. She has this that keeps her alive. What do I mean by that? Her bones are extremely hard to break, and even though she is shot in the head point blank range by a pistol or any type of other gun, it's not going to kill her. It may knock her out, but there's a very low chance of killing her with it. Even knocking her out may not happen because, being as how she is one of the world's greatest assassins, you will not catch her off guard easily. So let's talk a little bit about Rogue and where we're at in this current story and this current timeline, being as how I'm already way past when the video probably ends. And if it is, then I'll probably just be replaying it. So when it comes down to the current story of Rogue, you have Chell. She is currently going under that alias still. But this is also the timeline, or the alternate reality, where Chell, I guess, never technically left her original position. Now, in the book that she's in, it is explained what happens, and it goes into major detail on why she leaves and what all goes down where she currently works at, because she is located, or rather her work is located on a very large island. It's almost a nation, a country. That's how big it is. On this island, you have two opposing factions that are involved in something called the Blood Money Games. The Blood Money Games being simply, this is where you would put two hitmen to go up against each other and kill each other. It's a fight to the death, gladiator style, goodness gracious, but with weapons of pistols, and that's about it. Maybe some, close quarter combat. But for the most part, it's the richest of the rich come to bet on those who are willing to put away their lives for their own faction. And typically, the majority of the contenders, the people who go in to actually fight in this thing, and are turned from grunts to hitmen to whatever else the ranks have within the Blood Money Games and all that other stuff, they're all just basically prisoners. They're convicts, ex-cons, people looking to escape the prisons that they were at, most of them being high security prisons. And they are put on this island that is practically impossible to get off of. Highly guarded. Yeah, it's that kind of place. And Chell was not a convict. She actually she wasn't in jail, she didn't get transported there. The way that Chell actually ended up on the island, well, just to summarize a little bit of her backstory, she heard about somebody who had control of a major organization. And she set out to go kill the guy because she heard that they have a rule, you keep what you kill. So she managed to kill the leader, which was Daraku at the time. Then she could take over his position and then lead it herself. And when I say at the time, that's because the way that the story goes is that she finally meets up with Daraku and loses the battle. She is nowhere near prepared to fight somebody who is a full-fledged assassin. So you go from that, and you go to the fact that Daraku knows who she is and he trains her. And you see, there's a whole lot going on behind the curtain. A whole lot. In fact, Daraku is more than what he seems. And without spoiling too much for future videos, just know that Daraku knows who Shell really is, but how? Well, that's going to be explained in another video. So Shell is trained by Daraku. Daraku then makes her into this amazing killing machine. It takes years to do it, and she's already broken, so he doesn't have to do much, but he does break her further, to where she is almost emotionless. You zoom ahead a couple of years later, and that's where Vigilance actually starts. It's when she's sent on a mission to go kill somebody that turns out to be someone very close to her. That's all I'm going to say on that for right now. However, in the current episode of Rogue, which is the only episode, you'll probably see the other bits and pieces that were from the unfinished episode that came afterwards. Rogue was basically taking place around the time that it was in like a special era, right? This was an alternate reality where Daraku was kind of still in the lead of the Coalition to an extent. But the world has turned kind of dark. It has went down a different path, and Shell never quit being Shell. However, she did try to abandon her post as an assassin, but Daraku found her useful, and he wanted to keep her. Now granted, all of this was roughly written back in the day to kind of fuel the idea of what Rogue was. And Shell being one of the world's greatest assassins, well, I wanted to really bring home the fact that, you know, what she is like. During Rogue as a whole, this was the beginning of me really building her character around that idea. Because I wanted to, her true character really came through in the book. But in Rogue, which happened 5 years before the book was written, it actually kind of starts to show a little bit of her character coming through as this professional assassin who is amazing at what she does. So you go from that, and you watch as she's still kind of rough around the edges in terms of, like, not as a written character, but she is not really, you know, when you run into her in later animations and in later stories, you start to see a more fleshed out character that handles things differently. But in this version of Shell, she's actually a more rugged character who doesn't really respond well to human interactions too much because she's already angry for a lot of reasons. She's being forced to do what Daraku wants her to do, and she's also being forced to watch him break somebody else. And she's already been broken to the point to where she feels like it's the point of no return. And she's watching as Onyx is forced into the same position. She's kind of mad about the entire situation. And as a matter of fact, there was a scene that I shared up on my channel where she's talking about, you know, asking why Onyx is even there and why does he care about being around her. But then she also wants to basically have him admit that he enjoys what he does to an extent. It's almost as if she's serving two sides of her. One side being the part that believes that, you know, that she hates where she's at, and the other part being, well, he's here, he might as well admit it, he likes doing what he does. And it's almost as if Daraku knows about this and he's trying to play a game correctly. Why is he trying to awaken a beast inside of Onyx? No one knows what his true actual plan is for all of that. Is it to help him? No clue. But what we do know is that Daraku is someone who probably can't be trusted. Now, unfortunately, it looks like I have come to the point of being short on time, being as how this is about to hit the 15-minute mark. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to everybody who is watching this and is enjoying these little commentaries that I do. I'll have more to come out soon, and perhaps even a part 2 about who Shell is, and explaining a little bit more, being as how I probably did kind of ramble on a little bit. In any case, I will see you guys next time.